Hello, Steve. It's a real pleasure. Welcome to our Business Launch Portal radio show. It's great to have you on. Well, I know that our audience is very curious to find out more about you. So let me introduce you a little bit at the beginning. We met in Brussels at the JADE conference, the Junior Enterprise Conference, at a workshop in the first place. And I know that you are a serial entrepreneur and you caught the entrepreneurial bug pretty early in your life. And right now you work with the Angels Den, right? And why I wanted to have you on the show today is because you can share with our audience a little bit about how did you get started yourself? And once you are working with the Angels Den that brings together entrepreneurs that need funding with business angels and venture capitalists, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions around how can startup entrepreneurs and even entrepreneurs that have already their businesses running for some time, how can they get ready for funding and so on? But why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Who is Steve Skowyrski, and yeah, how did you catch the entrepreneurial bug in the first place?
Nice to see you again, Monique. It's a pleasure working with you. Yeah, it was a great event, wasn't it? And basically, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started very early in my life when I was a teenager. But the first real sort of business, serious business, I set up in London while I was still at the University of Westminster, and it was called Westminster Business Consultants. I was born in Poland originally, and I spent a lot of time in London. I have run a number of businesses, and now I'm based in Gibraltar, running a Angels Den business angels network. We call it International Hub because I look after Gibraltar and the rest of the world.
Wow. Great. And Steve, you said that you started building the first young entrepreneurship consultancy 17 years ago. So you obviously caught the entrepreneurial bug pretty early in your life. So what made you actually start your first business back then?
Well, this particular business, I was actually inspired by my professor. And he heard something about junior enterprise, and because I was one of his students on, I think it was a module on entrepreneurship. So he said, "Oh, Steve, would you like to give it a go? I think you've got the right sort of skill set." But I must say that his coaching and his support was absolutely unbelievable. So I wouldn't be able to do it without him. But it was just this amazing energy of great inspired people, students from all over Europe. It was first time that I was doing something as a team. So this was the main major experience that I drew from setting up Westminster Business Consultants Junior Enterprise in London. It was a team effort, and it was actually an international team effort because we worked with junior enterprises in France, Spain, Germany, Italy, and then I actually helped to set up a junior enterprise in Krakow.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, and Steve, how did you go from setting up this first, junior enterprise consultancy onto now working and helping to build Angels Den?
It's been a long journey, and the journey hasn't finished yet. Basically, I tried and failed many times. I tried different ventures. I was in properties. I even made a mistake of actually working for somebody. Oops. But I worked in recruitment, and I worked in the city in banking and finance as well. And I guess Angels Den is, for me at least, encompasses everything, all my life experiences and experiencing working corporates and experiences of running different businesses gives me, I think, this understanding of businesses needs.
Yes. And as we know, a lot of startup entrepreneurs and also more experienced entrepreneurs, when they reach a critical size of their business, they start to think about funding, right? And money is one of the most critical elements to, for some entrepreneurs to start your business and more importantly to bring it to the next level once you already have a stable business, right? What is actually Angels then doing in terms of helping people to get funded?
Well, like you say, cash is king and cash flow is absolutely essential. As you probably know, and a lot of our audience know, 90% of businesses fail within 3 to 4 years because they run out of money very often. So it's a very simple model. It's literally like a matchmaking service. We've got a pool of over 6,000 angels all over the world, people with money to invest, on average about £250,000 each. So we've got about £1.5 billion pool of money to invest in various ventures. And these people are very interesting because they've made it often very early in their lives. So they might be in their middle age, in their 40s or 50s, and they've most often actually made a lot of money from running businesses. So they're now sitting on this huge capital, and £250,000 is the money they can afford to lose almost. So it's like they've got usually a few million, and these people don't have the time because they now concentrating on their families or pursuing other businesses or other ventures, and they're actually missing this entrepreneurial vibe, but they don't know how to find those new businesses to invest. So we sit in between the angels and entrepreneurs who are desperate to find the money.
And as this is a show for, younger entrepreneurs, not in terms of age, but, pretty early in the process. And the question is, I remember that from a previous conversation, Steve, you said that you get a lot of requests from entrepreneurs that need funding, but you're saying that a lot of them are not actually investment ready. What makes you say that, and what would make them investment ready?
To run a successful business, you need to have a business plan. To run a successful business, you need to have a marketing plan. To run a successful business, you have to have a team. And often people contact us without any of those elements. We're still trying to help. I work with a number of coaches, a number of training organizations, but bottom line is they need to have some structure and some of those elements ready before they come and approach us, so we can analyze it and make a decision if their business is investment ready or not. The other very important subject, which is overlooked, angels are looking to invest in people. Are you a nice person? Are you a human being? Are you, can you communicate? Because it's not about some geek, excuse my language, explaining some widget or software. The angels don't understand what the nitty-gritty of this invention is, but they want to have fun. They want to invest in interesting people, and that's probably the first criteria. So it's kind of like the best kept secret, but I just spelled it out.
Yeah, I love.
So if somebody contacts me and is kind of too serious and too corporate and too robotic, we can't help, because we won't be able to put them in front of the angels, because angels like to work with people.
Yeah, I love what you said, and thanks for sharing. One of the secrets, best kept secrets of investment, Steve, is basically that something that I hear again and again is that investors want to invest in people and in their concepts, of course, and in their thorough business plans and so on. But in the first place, in people, right? And you mentioned some criteria. So when someone gets in touch with you that, already has a business running or is starting out, it doesn't really matter at which moment they are. Some startup organizations need funding pretty early in the process. But let's assume some entrepreneur approaches you and saying, Steve, I heard that you bring businesses together with business angels for, to fast track the funding opportunity. you said that there is a set of criteria, and you mentioned a few of them. You said you look at the people and you look at the business plan and a couple of other things. Could you maybe summarize which are the top criteria that you look at?
Do you remember? I think we discussed it before the interview that I just know. I literally can tell, but it's just years of experience and dealing with different people and different experiences and different businesses. And it's a lot about the energy of these people. So like the way they talk, the way they approach me, even the way they draft their emails. I just can tell. But let me try to break it down and maybe analyze it. The first thing when somebody contacts me is I give them a list of things that I need, and it's very simple and quite clear for me, but very few people actually follow those instructions. So like I said,
what are those instructions?
Well, the instructions are: can you send me an executive summary of your business? Can you send me a business plan? Have you got a marketing plan? And just tell me briefly what it's all about. Because if I don't understand it, the angels won't understand it, and it will go nowhere. And it's a lot to do with communication skills, communication. So if somebody can clearly communicate how they're trying to improve the world, how they're trying to add value, and how this product or service is gonna benefit other people, then they're in. Most people concentrate on, they're trying to sell me the product almost, or service, I'm not buying anything. So they have to sell themselves. There are some criteria as well, like you mentioned. To be honest, and it might not be the best news for your audience, but that's why we're working together, Monique, because
yes,
angels very rarely invest in startups. We won't. Most angels ask questions, and these are the questions that I will ask entrepreneurs as well. What it is, how it's gonna improve the world, how you're gonna market it. Have you invested your own money? Because often we get entrepreneurs coming with a multi-million plan and they have not actually put a penny of their own money. Another very investable criteria is if there was somebody who already invested in your business. So that it could be your parents or your aunt or your friend or maybe your business partner, or even like if you have a provisional agreement, maybe there is an investor who is kind of interested in your idea, but he will only match the investment. So somebody's looking for 200,000. There's somebody who is willing to put 100,000, but only if our angel puts 100,000, if it makes sense. There's a joke as well about it. It's actually, again, comes more from America, but our angels often say, well, how many times have you failed? And if somebody hasn't failed, they say, well, go and fail a few times and then come back, because I don't want to be the first one that you fail with. Because most entrepreneurs do fail, and I failed many times as well. So I'm not ashamed to admit it. And some businesses took off, some businesses failed, some businesses flourished, some businesses folded. So you just have to be tough skin and prepared to fail. And yes, this is one of the questions that angels ask.
Well, you gave us a couple of very, very great hints on what people need to prepare that want to get funded by your angels. And I just wonder and would like to pick up on one point that you mentioned where you said that a business plan is also something important, where you say you want to understand, what difference do these entrepreneurs want to make to the world? What value do they want to bring? What benefits and so on? What needs to be in a well-crafted business plan so that it triggers your interest?
I don't have much time to read a 50-page business plan thoroughly. A well laid out business plan, and I can tell because I've seen hundreds of, maybe even thousands of business plans. If it's well laid out, it just tells me things straight away within a minute. And the first is the summary. What is it that you're trying to do? How are you going to do it? How much money do you need? And how much equity do you require? If it's a business plan specifically prepared for equity funding. And then we need to see financial predictions, but there is another secret, and angels know that it's complete nonsense. I don't know if you're gonna like it, Monique, but it's never gonna work. You know, you think you're gonna sell X amount of services, but it's always gonna be different. So the financial predictions is more for the entrepreneur, to be honest, because they need to understand, set themselves some goals. But we know that it's not real. It's gonna change completely. The main thing is, what are you trying to do and how are you gonna do it? That's basically how I see the business plan. But you need to know you as an entrepreneur need to know your business plan inside out, because when you meet the angel, they will ask you questions which will be in your business plan, but they probably haven't even read it, but they will ask you questions, and you need to know your business plan inside out. Be prepared to answer any question that they ask you, and there could be some really random questions, because once you've gone through the selection process and once we've decided that you are the right type of business ready to be invested, we then organize something called speed funding events. And I've just had the first speed funding event in Gibraltar on the 19th of April, and it was very successful. We had 7 businesses flying this time from Scotland, Ireland, London, and Spain. So how the event looks like: once we've selected those businesses, we bring them along to one of the locations all around the world, whichever works for them best, whichever is closest to them. So we've got Angel Den operations in London, Manchester, Edinburgh, and Dubai, Qatar, Oman, Hong Kong, Singapore, and now in Gibraltar. So you arrive to Gibraltar, and we've got a bit of an introduction. Before the event, we've got a pitching school. So it's a bit of a recap, bit of a reminder how the pitch should look like. And then we sort of introduced our sponsors, our partners, and have a soft drink, and then angels sit at the table, usually couple, and then we invite entrepreneurs to pitch in front of the angels for 3 minutes. So imagine, it's not a presentation, it's not a long business conference. You literally have 3 minutes to say what I've just said earlier. Then they move on to another table. So last time we had 7 tables. So the same entrepreneur, like in speed dating, had to move on from one table to another 7 times. And it's about who you are, because angels make a decision whether they're gonna even talk to you later or not within split of a second, and we can never tell. That's why we invite usually a ratio of 2 to 3 to entrepreneurs. So if we have 7 entrepreneurs, we've got 15 to 20 angels, because we don't know. Sometimes they invest because you are a woman, or sometimes they invest because you are a man, or sometimes they invest because you wear a tie, or maybe they don't. They invest because you don't wear a tie, like me today, and they just want to work with nice people. So if they invest money, they're not just investors. That's why we call them angels, because they're not just investors, they are angels. So when they invest, they don't just put money and leave you to it. They will actively work with you. So they don't want to work with somebody who's got a bad breath, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They want to work with somebody who is nice, and because they might spend 2 or 3 years, or even in some cases 5 years, with that person or that team. So it's important to be a nice person.
Yes. And it just shows again that business, and even when it comes to money, or even especially when it comes to money, it's all about a connection and relationship between a person and a person, right? So it's all about people. Steve, I'd like to ask you, you said repeatedly that, of course, when people pitch, there's often a lot of questions from investors. What are the most, let's say, 3 common questions that are asked again and again from investors?
They ask bizarre questions like, what do you do in your spare time? Because again, they want to know who you are as a person. So they would ask quite a few personal questions. They take the entrepreneurs off guard by asking not technical questions, but very, very personal questions, because they want to know who you are.
Very interesting. And when you say that you run these speed pitching events, speed funding events, and you have somewhere between 6 and 10 entrepreneurs on there, how many of those get eventually funded?
Typically, we get we say we've got a 90% success ratio, because 90% of businesses that come to speed funding event raise some kind of interest from at least one angel. And at my first event, amazingly enough, all the businesses had some kind of interest from at least one angel, some from 2 or 3. It takes a long time, sometimes 3 to 6 months, to actually get the process going. So again, if you like really desperate for money now, that might not be the best process for you, because the angels will take time to get to know you better. One date is not gonna sort of create a marriage.
Steve, I'd like to pick up something you said earlier. You're saying that these business angels are often not only bringing money to the table, but they're bringing other things that really help to bring the business to the next level. What are business angels bringing to the table besides money?
First thing is the expertise of running a business themselves. They can see what can happen to those businesses if they don't do certain things, which young entrepreneurs, purely by the lack of experience, don't have. They bring their contacts. They have relationships with other organizations or other companies, or suppliers or providers, and they will just literally take out we call them a black book, and that just takes sometimes decades to build, and it becomes for benefit of the entrepreneurs. I didn't actually ask previous question correctly, because how many of them are getting actually funded? Typically about 30%. Very often then they come, if they don't get successful, they come back after 3 or 6 months, or maybe a year, stronger, more experienced, and if they've taken our advice on board, maybe sell more, prove their business model better, they stand a better chance of funding.
People that come to these events take so much more away than, just the connection to a potential investor.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to communicate your ideas will have a major impact on your business. I'd like to also, switch the perspective around. We've spoken a lot about what, investors and angel investors bring to the table, and what they're looking for in enterprises and entrepreneurs. How should actually people that want to get funding, what should they look for in business angels? How do they make a best selection?
It's personal. I mean, you can't put a specific thing on it. I don't think you can, Monique, because some entrepreneurs, maybe they would like some control and challenge. I think angels want to treat the entrepreneur, most often want to be involved in the business, but it's a balance. So some businesses might want to accept this kind of almost invasion, but most don't, because entrepreneurs are, by its nature, they are entrepreneurial, creative, introvert people with very strong views on the world and running their own show. So I think if they feel that the angel wants to take too much equity and also impose too much control, they might decide to go away. But I'm not saying that might be a good thing for some businesses. I think once they've been selected through the whole process, once they've met the angels, most often are able to find some kind of consensus.
The challenge for business angels often is that there's a perception out there that there's not a big chance to get actually angel investment. So this is why a lot of people don't actually even try, or they don't even know where to look for it. Is that also your perception?
Well, it's no longer my perception, because I know where to find the money, and I know how I can help other people to find the money, because we've got over 6,000 angels interested, yes, and able and willing to invest in exciting businesses. And I would absolutely strongly recommend considering angel investing, because it's better to have even 10% of something than 100% of nothing. Often why entrepreneurs don't want angel investing, because they think they can do it themselves, they can keep 100% of the company. Unfortunately, very often they end up with nothing. I cannot mention certain TV programs that are claiming to do a great job, but even some of those programs showed real situations where entrepreneurs which were able to share the equity with angels achieved amazing things. Just to give you an idea, I spoke to one of our angels recently. He said he made 45% of his investment in 6 months' time. I think he invested £100,000 in 20% of the company. So if he made £45,000 in 6 months, that means that the other 80% of the company owned by the entrepreneur has grown in its value accordingly. He's actually telling now about potential business that he has invested a little bit more money, which will bring him possibly not 40%, not 80%, but 80 times the investment.
80. That is an interesting case, and I'm curious to see where that leads. I'd like to ask another question, Steve. You said that often funding is not for startup entrepreneurs, and I agree. You need to often have a first, foundation, and you need to see that the business concept works. But when you meet a certain, growth with your business, you might not be able to grow as fast as you could by bringing investment in, right? When is the right time to consider getting funded by angels?
If you haven't failed, you are going to have less chance of getting the funding, purely because angels want to see some kind of track record, some kind of life experience. We have funded startup businesses, and we have funded very young entrepreneurs as well who haven't failed. But more often than not, they want to see some kind of life wisdom and experience. You have to be a little bit under the way, on your way with your business. So there is some track record. It's a proven business model, and there's a team as well. So again, if somebody comes to me as a lone ranger, it's not a good sign, because if he cannot build a team, the entrepreneur will be less likely to be able to work with the angel.
Yes, I love what you say, and I also think it was Churchill that said success is to go from failure to failure without lack of enthusiasm, right? And I think we Europeans especially still need to, get used to fail forward more and more. But I'd like to round off our conversation and interview, Steve, with asking you again to summarize a little bit, speaking about success. So when our entrepreneurs and listeners and watchers would like to get funded by a business angel or venture capitalist, Can you summarize again what increases their chances of succeeding to really get funded? Just as a little summary to our interview.
Prepare, prepare, prepare. Communicate clearly in a human language. Like don't speak jargon. If a 12-year-old cannot understand what you're trying to do, I will not, and the angels will not. And I have lots of people throwing their arms and saying, no, but my program, my software is so complicated. No, but it doesn't matter how complicated it is. If you cannot explain in a very simple terms what it does and how it's gonna generate income, it's difficult to move forward. And I think what I said before, communication, and personality. If you can convince the angel that you are a nice, authentic person, you stand a high chance of getting funded. It's not about numbers.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, if people would like to get in touch with you and find out more about Angel Stan, where can they find out more about you and get in touch with you?
Well, there's a URL address, angelsden.com.
Yes.
And if you scroll in contacts, there's lots of different tabs of different regions, and I'm in Gibraltar, so if you look for me under Gibraltar, I'm happy to answer any questions. If you think you are ready, if one of your businesses, if the entrepreneurs think they're ready, they can register. But I first recommend to email me, and we'll get you through the process. So it's as simple as that.
It's been absolutely brilliant to have you on. Thanks for sharing so many hints and tips on how to get really funded and giving a glimpse and insight into your own entrepreneurial journey and into what you do with Angel Stan. It's been brilliant to have you on. Would you like to actually close off with any kind of additional words of wisdom to our audience?
I haven't quite stressed, I maybe mentioned that, but it's very important to have a mentor and coach on your team. And like I mentioned, I felt many times I was arrogant and ignorant because I thought I could do it by myself. Now I'm wiser and I have a number of coaches. You need to bounce your ideas off. As an entrepreneur, you tend to be a lone ranger, and if you have somebody to share the ideas, don't even consider running a business if you don't have a mentor or coach, because you are, what's the saying?
If you fail to prepare, you prepare for failure.
Exactly. I would definitely strongly recommend getting a coach or mentor, because this will lead you through the whole life, because eventually an angel will become your coach and mentor.
Very, very true. It's also my experience, and it just brings it back to something you said earlier. Most business angels are actually also mentors for your business, right? Well, Steve, again, a big thank you for having you on, and I look forward to have you back with us sometime, and we wish you all the best with Angel Stan. And we know that you have a great team out there, and I look forward to help some entrepreneurs, get ready and be investment ready so that your angel investors can have a lot of fun and make a difference in the world and, place their investment in the right way. Again, thanks for having you on, and hope to have you back sometime.
Thank you, Monique.
All the best.
Speaking to you. Your inspiration. I like talking to you, and let's keep in touch.